the North Country, Ed Schultz, news and commentary. Mixing a little recreation on this Monday morning. International work permit. You know how it goes, folks. Good to have you with us. BioGreen Clean brings you this podcast along with Communication Workers of America, Alliance for American Manufacturing, and the iSave team. Interesting stories developing in Iowa over the weekend. Bernie Sanders in an Iowa straw poll wins over Hillary Clinton. Let's put that aside for a moment, what is being said on the campaign trail, and deal with the issues. It's no longer a distraction. It is an issue for Hillary Clinton. The story continues to drip. Her personal email server, according to McClatchy newspapers, has got top secret information on it, something that Clinton had denied previously in this campaign. Trey Gowdy is out and about on the talking head saying that the Inspector General is not partisan, the FBI is not partisan, and she need not blame House Republicans for having her own email private server. It may have been a convenience to her, but nobody else. Bottom line here is that Clinton is now caught on the campaign trail trying to explain how she's going to handle this.
I won't get down in the mud with them. I won't play politics with national security or dishonor the memory of those who we lost. I won't pretend that this is anything other than what it is, the same old partisan games we've seen so many times before.
It sounds good, but the fact is that there are top secret emails on her personal email. Then that's going to be definitely a problem when the FBI jumps right into this and gets their investigation going. She could be facing charges. Clinton has said in the past that there are no classified emails on her personal account. She said that on Saturday as well.
First, I've said in the past that, I used a single account for convenience. Obviously, these years later, it doesn't look so convenient. I never sent classified material on my email, and I never received any that was marked classified. So I'm going to let whatever this inquiry is go forward, and we'll, await the outcome of it.
So she says she never sent, that were marked classified. Well, if it's not marked classified, but it's classified information, now we're getting into the devil in the details. And this is something that the Inspector General is going to have to decipher for the American people, along with the FBI. Trey Gowdy, who was the House Benghazi committee chairman, he isn't buying any of this. He thinks that Clinton's guilty.
The greater steps that you take to clean something or delete something, that's a higher level of concealment. That's a higher level of consciousness of concealment. So your viewers have to ask themselves, to what lengths would they go to delete a yoga email? Would they call in forensic experts to triple wash a server so they could get rid of bridesmaids emails or yoga practice emails? Of course not. We hit the delete button and we forget about it. So the more energy she put into cleansing or wiping this server clean, I think your viewers should take or infer from that perhaps there was something on there she really didn't want us to see.
To me, that sounds more technical than partisan. There are absolutes in this story. If they're gone, how did they get gone, and what effort did she go to get rid of them? I can tell you one thing, it's no longer a distraction, it's an issue. And the American people don't want to see a candidate spend half her time trying to claim that she's innocent, no matter how pissed off she gets on the campaign trail. For more on this, let's go to John Nichols, Washington correspondent of The Nation magazine. John, good to have you with us this morning. A distraction and now an issue, or is that an overreach of the subject? Your take on it.
Ed, I think it's a little bit of both. A lot of what Hillary Clinton says here is true or is probably true. I don't think she, as an experienced person, would have put herself in a position to be caught sending all sorts of highly classified information and things of that nature. And if mistakes were made, as mistakes often are made in email, I'm sure there was efforts to clean it up. Remember, she's surrounded by the Secret Service. She's surrounded by, a lot of people who one would assume are pretty sophisticated in keeping an eye on things like this. The one other thing I'll throw in the mix just up front here is, I think that Trey Gowdy on this is a particularly bad player because he's just, in my mind, flat out dishonest in some of what he says there. When he suggests that, you wouldn't clean a server to get rid of bridesmaids lists and yoga schedules and things like that, yes, I think that the Clintons might, because these are people who are constantly under scrutiny, and maybe they don't want their bridesmaid list sent out. Maybe they don't want a wedding list with Donald Trump's name sent out. So the bottom line is that I think you've got a lot of, kind of over-the-top back and forth here. That's the distraction side. Now, you ask also, how serious is this? I think this is getting serious. I think that the ongoing drip, 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 the constant return to this, even if it's driven by Trey Gowdy's extreme partisanship, even if it's fed by Hillary Clinton's missteps, whatever does, the fact that this stays into the news as we move through the summer toward the fall, I think is an issue. And Ed, I have to believe it affects the thinking of someone like Joe Biden as he considers whether to possibly get in the presidential race.
That's an interesting point. First of all, Hillary Clinton is handling this on the campaign trail, saying that she's not hearing any of this from voters. She might not be hearing it from voters, but they might be thinking it. And this drip that we're talking about is enthused by what the Inspector General's action is and also the FBI. They're not connected to the Republican Party. I would find it hard to believe that they would be partisan in any way. So the honesty of this issue is that 60% of the American people polled in late July showed that this personal email address was somewhat of a serious problem. And the same poll found that Republicans were 5 times more likely to describe Clinton's personal email usage as a very serious problem. Okay, so there's politics involved. But if the McClatchy news story is correct and that there are classified emails on her personal server, I don't know how she gets around it. Donald Trump is characterizing it. It'll be a miracle if she gets out of this. In the meantime, she's on the campaign trail saying, well, voters aren't talking to me about it. And then, of course, she gets very adamant about the fact that she won't get down in the mud and politicize this when it comes to national security. So this is all going to give a tremendous amount of fire for people like us. But there's going to be voters in Iowa who are going to be involved in a straw poll that are going to say, I'm getting kind of tired of this. And then there's the positive of Bernie Sanders. So I think that this has gone beyond a distraction and chatter in the back of the crowd. I think that this is a snowballing into a real issue for the Clinton campaign. And I don't think the American people are going to want to spend half their time listening to a candidate who's trying to tell them that she didn't do anything wrong. And then, of course, the media doesn't want this to unravel because the Clintons are big players when it comes to her campaign. So, John, how does she handle this? What is her best avenue at this point? I mean, let's play cut 10 one more time if we can. Listen to how adamant she is about this whole thing, about the way it's unfolding.
I won't get down in the mud with them. I won't play politics with national security or dishonor the memory of those who we lost. I won't pretend that this is anything other than what it is, the same old partisan games we've seen so many times before.
John, what do you think of that?
Well, let's unravel this in a couple of ways. First off, you nailed one thing in our back and forth there that's absolutely essential. For all the different dialogue here, the fact that the FBI and security, federal folks who aren't partisan are involved in looking at this, that's something that the average person, no matter how powerful or how strong Hillary Clinton's response is, that's something that the average person hears and has concern about. They have to. And so when you ask how does she respond, she has got to kind of go at that not talking about the FBI all the time or things like that, but she has to address the issues that are open, that are in play here. And I don't think that it works, at least in my view. I don't think it works in a long-term sense to say, I'm not going to get down in the mud, right? Because if it's Hillary Clinton versus Trey Gowdy, let me put it this way, I think Trey Gowdy is the best ally Hillary Clinton's got on this. Because if it's just him, spewing partisanship, or just some other Republican spewing partisanship, then she can say, I'm not getting down in the mud. But if we're talking about FBI investigations, if we're talking about more serious investigations, if what McClatchy is pointing to turns out to be more than people have expected, not just maybe a mistaken, bit of information that pops back and forth, but a steady pattern, if that's there, then you can't just say, oh, I'm a victim, I'm under attack. What you have to do is get down into the thick of it. You have to explain the nuts and bolts of this, and either effectively explain, doesn't have to be on and ongoing every day, but at least in one serious sit-down conversation, effectively explain what you were doing, how it was working, if mistakes were made, if something was done that wasn't right. Go through that in a very open, very strong way, because that's the bridge to get to the next conversation. If that doesn't happen, Ed, there is a great danger that she keeps getting asked about this, not just through August and September, but right up into, New Hampshire and Iowa. And can you imagine in the debates, Ed? A moderator's got to ask about this. And if a moderator says, if the debates become about this,
the moderator is going to have to ask about it, and I just don't know how this is going to go away anytime soon. What do you make of the straw poll? Bernie Sanders wins an Iowa straw poll over Hillary Clinton, and the audience say that they respond better to his message. Now, this is more than interesting. The results of the poll published by the Iowa Secretary of State's website shows that 49% of Democrats support Bernie Sanders. Only 45% say that they would support Hillary Clinton. Tom Harkin, former senator, Democratic senator, longtime Democratic senator, came out and supported Hillary Clinton over the weekend. I don't know what kind of an effect that's going to have in Iowa, but of course, Bill Clinton and Tom Harkin have been friends for years, and of course, Hillary was also in the Senate. But this poll and the momentum of Sanders is something that the Clinton campaign didn't expect. The email snowballing on them is something they didn't expect, and she's going to need a war chest and a half to have to combat all of this. What do you make of the Harkin endorsement? What do you make of the straw poll, John?
Well, those are important questions. And the only thing I'd add to, by the way, your list there of things that are weighing on her is the fact that Joe Biden's still got some conversations going on as well. And so here, as regards the Harkin endorsement, Tom Harkin has been very, very close to the Clintons going back to the 1990s. And he has often stepped up for them and for people aligned with the former Clinton administration. In 2000, when Bill Bradley was mounting a serious challenge to Al Gore for the Democratic nomination early on, Tom Harkin played an absolutely critical role, really, down in the trenches role in getting Al Gore a big win in the Iowa caucuses. At that point, Harkin was at the peak of his strength in many ways and a sitting senator with a strong organization. I don't know that Harkin can bring quite that to Hillary Clinton at this point, but it is helpful to have him at her side. There is simply no question. He is a very useful and respected player among Iowa Democrats who are very loyal to him. Why was his endorsement brought out at this point? That's an important thing to keep in mind. My sense is that the Hillary Clinton people are very, very conscious of the rise of Bernie Sanders. They see what's going on. They may not respond to it publicly in a big way, but they see that New Hampshire poll. They see that straw poll, which I think is, real evidence. Remember, a straw poll like that, very strong evidence of the kind of engaged people who might well be first in line at the caucuses, and they're looking for ways to respond. Last week, they got a very big endorsement from the Machinists Union, which has always been very loyal to the Clintons, and particularly to Hillary Clinton. Then they pop out an endorsement from Tom Harkin, a very well-regarded figure with organized labor and populist wing of the party. I think that the Clinton response to Sanders is being seen in these actions, in popping a union endorsement, in popping a Harkin endorsement at this point. And they've got a lot of that. The Clinton folks have a lot of that in their back pocket. They're able to pull out, folks, and maybe, these folks obviously are making free will decisions. They're not being forced to endorse. But what I'm saying is these are folks who were likely to endorse. Now suddenly they're popping out at this point. My sense is you'll see more of that in an effort to counter Sanders. But I have to tell you, Ed, I don't think, at least at this point, I don't think that the people who are flocking to these Bernie Sanders events, and I guess there were like 2,000 in Dubuque last night, the people who are, registering in these straw polls, the people who are actually, giving him apparently a lead in New Hampshire, I don't think those folks are particularly affected by an endorsement one way or the other. I think they assume Hillary Clinton will have most of the big endorsements. And my sense is that that's not what this is going to be about. So I don't think it trips Sanders up that much, but it is an evidence that the Clinton people are conscious that they need to speak to the populist labor wing of the party.
John Nichols, Washington correspondent of The Nation magazine, always great to visit. John, thanks so much on this Monday edition of Ed Schultz News and Commentary. When we come back, we'll hear from Bernie Sanders as he is responding to just exactly who is supporting him and where these folks are coming from. That's next here on the Ed Schultz Internet broadcast. Stay with us.
Hey folks, you've heard me talk about BioGreen Clean. I'm going to show you right now on my airplane just how tough this is. I want you to keep in mind, chemical-free, 100% plant-derived, biodegradable. It is the safest cleaner that you can get, and it's the most effective. Go to our website, wegoted.com, or go to biogreenclean.com. www.biogreenclean and order today.
It's time to continue our conversation about mechanical insulation. Mechanical insulation is for the piping systems in our nation's commercial and industrial facilities. Facility owners are burning up billions of dollars through the lack of mechanical insulation on these piping systems. Call the iSave team. Insulation saves America valuable energy, and this team of energy conservation specialists is shovel-ready to save you money. Visit iSaveTeam.org to have a specialist give your plant an energy audit.
We perpetuate a culture of crime all the way from Wall Street right down to the main street in our hometowns. It's worse than it has been since FDR took control of the problem and said we can't count on industry taking care of the American labor. They probably have already engaged into some type of criminal cover-up, and the law prohibits the government from even doing anything about it.
Catch America's lawyer Mike Papantonio on YouTube at youtube.com/GoLeftTV.
From the steel mills of Pennsylvania, to the auto factories of Michigan, to the modern makers movement, manufacturing makes our nation great. I'm Scott Paul, president of the Alliance for American Manufacturing. We bring business and labor together to advocate for policies that everyone can agree on. Together, we can strengthen manufacturing and create good-paying American jobs. Help us keep it made in America.
Subscribe to the Ed Schultz podcast today. Simply log on to iTunes, search for Ed Schultz, and click the subscribe button to have the show delivered to your preferred listening device daily, free of charge. Rate and review the podcast and tell us how we're doing. More details at wegoted.com.
Dog days of summer, no doubt about it, and a hot campaign that is unfolding in front of our eyes. Something no one really predicted. Good to have you with us on Ed Schultz News and Commentary on this Monday edition at wegoted.com, rawstory.com, and ringofireradio.com. This is the answer that Bernie Sanders gave a year ago. It's the answer he gave 6 months ago. It's the answer he gave on Meet the Press over the weekend, and if you interview him today, this is the answer he'll give again. It's his consistency. It's his bullseye attitude on what he believes that the American people are concerned about, and he is dreadfully focused on all of this. Here it is.
I think we are resonating all over this country and here in Iowa because we're talking about issues that are life and death issues to the American people. And that is the collapse of the American middle class, the massive and grotesque level of income and wealth inequality in this country, the fact that we are the only major country on earth that doesn't guarantee health care to all people, the fact that millions of working class families are now finding it very, very difficult to send their kids to college, and the basic fact that people are working longer hours for lower wages, and meanwhile almost all of the new income and wealth is going to the top 1%. And then you add to that a campaign finance system as a result of Citizens United that allows billionaire families like the Koch brothers and others to literally buy politicians and corrupt the American political process.
350,000 people have contributed to Bernie Sanders' campaign. He openly says, in comparison to Donald Trump, that he's not a rich guy. And that walking the walk, I think, is something that is attracting a lot of people. The biggest controversy that Sanders has had to deal with is to convince African Americans that he will do something when it comes to institutional racism. That's as controversial as it's been so far for Bernie Sanders on the campaign trail, which is, when you look at his record of 50 years of public service, this is going to be an easy lift, and time is on his side. Here's what he's going to do to end it.
The issue that they are raising is a very, very important issue. And there is no candidate for president who will be stronger in fighting against institutional racism and, by the way, reforming a broken criminal justice system. Chuck, we have more people in jail in the United States of America than any other country on earth. And we need real changes. We need to do away with the militarization of local police departments. We need to do away with minimum sentencing. We need education and jobs for our young people rather than jails and incarceration.
And Bernie Sanders pushes back on criticism that his status as an independent lawmaker would make him incapable of winning the nomination for the Democratic Party. He claims it's an advantage. You know, when you're drawing 28,000 people in Portland, 27,000 people in Los Angeles, and as John Nichols said, to over 2,000 in Dubuque, Iowa last night, something's happening here in every portion of the country. His staff is now going to be expanding today and next week. More offices are opening up in New Hampshire, where he is now leading Hillary Clinton, and the email story eventually will get pushed on to Bernie Sanders. What does he think about the Inspector General's comments and also the path of the FBI investigating the private email server of Hillary Clinton? It's getting hot on the trail. This is Ed Schultz News and Commentary for Monday. Have a great one. We're back tomorrow.